The Planning Committee on, here we are, the 6th of June already. I have apologies from these members. Councillor Collins for lateness, Mayor Phil Goff.
Collins is here.
He's here. Mayor Phil Goff for lateness on council business, and Councillors Fletcher and Sayers for absence, and Councillor new grandmum again, Sharon Stewart, for early departure. Congratulations again, number 2, Councillor Stewart. Nice moments. I will move accordingly. Do I have a second?
Yep.
Thank you, Councillor Casey. And welcome back, Councillor Casey, as well. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Aye. Declare that carried. Thank you. Members, are there any declarations of interest on any item, be it on the open agenda or the confidential agenda? Any declarations to convey? There being none, go to the confirmation of the minutes, and I'm...
Chair,
sorry. I have
confidential item, declaration of interest for
C. Declaration of interest from Councillor Denise Lee on confidential item...
C2.
C2. Thank you. Receive that. And now we'll go to confirmation of the minutes. I'll move receipt of the minutes of 2nd of May, both the open and confidential minutes. Do I have a second? Thank you, Councillor Denise Lee. And I have a second there. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Declare that carried.
I can tell you who's even written it.
Do you know Joseph well? There are no petitions under 4.
Ray.
Public input, members. I had a request from Charlotte Fisher on the Wynyard area, or the Wynyard Point area, Tank Farm, that area there. We do have a report coming in July, so I've recommended to Ms Fisher that she attends in the public input section of our next agenda when that particular body of work will be coming to us. And I also have invited Mr Rob Ware, who is chair of the Hamilton lobby group that is proposing Hamilton to Auckland Rail, to come along, and he will speak, just because of a time constraint, he will speak at the item. I've also invited the chair of the Waikato Regional Council, who is unfortunately in the South Island, the chief executive delegated authority to the infrastructure manager there, council manager for integration and infrastructure, Anika Lane. And Anika was due, but she is ill this morning. As you can appreciate, the Waikato Regional Council and District Council and City Councils down there are interested in that topic, having led it to date. So, local board input. I have had no requests for local board input, though there is feedback outlined in various reports. There are no extraordinary items under 7, no notices of motion, which brings us to item 9, and that item you will find on your agenda at page 9. And I welcome David Rankin and team from Panuku. Members, this item was workshopped with us on the 13th of April, and I think we had 1, 2, 3, 4, about 8, 10 councillors at that meeting on the 13th of April, and you will find a record of that on the hub if you want to have a quick reference. If you couldn't make that particular workshop, please, while we're considering this item, you might like to go to that presentation. So this item is informed by that presentation on the 13th of April. The report before us now, and David, we've read the report, and is there anything further you'd like to add or highlight?
Not much, Mr Chairman. I think, as you said, we thought the workshop session was very useful with councillors. I'll introduce Marianne Webb, our portfolio strategy manager. Yeah, I think basically the essence of this is that it's a tool we would like to be able to access as part of carrying out our key strategy on your behalf in the town centres. So happy to answer questions.
Members, you might be thinking of a question on this. I just want to highlight that I think this has had strong local board support, David.
Yeah, I think that's what you'd characterise as fairly good support from local boards. Obviously, they'll expect to be involved in any particular exercises of it, which is what we intend anyway.
Thank you. And just before I do proceed with questions, David, I emailed you on this holiday weekend and you responded on the Queen's birthday, thank you, with some proposed amendments which have the support of the Deputy Chair as well. I noticed the renewal tools probably need to be made specific in the brackets there. Deletion of the words "in principle." You are seeking our support today.
Correct.
Because I think we've socialised this and addressed it pretty well through the workshop and hopefully today. The Roman A1, adding the word "and local board," you're comfortable with that?
Yes.
And then specifying the geographic limitation of the use of powers under Roman 2. And Roman 3 emphasises that your first course of action is negotiated acquisition, that you don't jump to using compulsory acquisition or designation without negotiated acquisition.
Correct.
Do you want to just cover those reds for the benefit of members?
Yeah, so I think, Mr Chairman, as you say, we are, the whole purpose of our interaction with the committee at the workshop and in discussion has been we want a level of comfort that this is something we'll exercise, and as you said, in principle was really a superfluous term. It is always our intention to use these authorities where we have to, only within an area that's been mandated through this committee by the high-level project plan. And as you point out, we always take those through and get the support of the relevant local board as well. Your point 3 is a significant clarification. As councillors may or may not be aware, we do all the Public Works Act acquisitions for the council year in, year out. And as I said at the workshop, it is very, very rare that we ever actually have to use compulsory acquisition powers. But it is helpful to have it as a backdrop. But in terms of actually using it, it's very, very rare, and by far the overwhelming majority are negotiated as a successful settlement.
Thank you, David. Questions from members?
Yes.
Councillor Denise Lee.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Just a question in regards to recommendation 1, having the local board clearly endorse the high-level project plan and therefore trigger some of these tools that we're about to vote on today. If a local board does not endorse a high-level project plan, the first question is, would you ever anticipate that scenario? What is the decision-making process up to that high-level project plan? And would this effectively knock over all that we're voting on today should we come to a very unlikely scenario, I'd say, of a local board not endorsing a high-level project plan?
Well, look, if it is very hard to envisage because, look, to be quite honest, the work we do in these town centres is difficult and challenging enough without us also having a kind of problem, if you like, with the local board, which is why we go to such great lengths to build not only support amongst key stakeholders, but also typically spend a lot of time working through high-level project plans with the relevant local board. Because unless we have the support of a local board, not necessarily for every little thing, but unless it's supportive of what the high-level project plan is trying to achieve, then what's already a difficult challenge would become, probably quite unmanageable. I mean, look, ultimately, if we ever got into an extreme situation where a local board was not wanting to support a high-level project plan, I guess and we wanted to proceed, it would just have to come here with that all transparent, but it's very difficult to envisage why we would want to see ourselves in that position.
Can we explore that a little bit further then? And I might have to look at my own words there, so So my understanding is, say in all the transforms that we've got now and the unlocks, we've got high-level project plans in place?
Not for all the unlocks. We have for a number now, probably, in fact, the majority.
Majority of
Yeah.
them are two to come.
Two to come, yeah.
And those are confirmed by this committee and boards?
We bring them through the boards, and to date, we've had local boards supporting all of them. And yes, then they come to this committee with that support. As I say, look, at the end of the day, if we ever reach some position that was completely intractable, we would have to come here and say, well, here's the issue the local board disagrees with us on and we think it's fundamental. But it hasn't happened to date, and it's not something, as I say, we go to extraordinary lengths really to build support for these plans because it's hard enough anyway.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, members? Councillor Kirkland.
Thank you. And I mean, I do think it would be unusual if a board didn't support a high-level plan. So I'm really happy with the high-level plan. But I suppose my question is, and observation is, often we'll get stuck in the detail is where it'll get stuck. No, we don't want to sell that, or no, Mr. X doesn't want you to buy that, and there may be that tension between the local board supporting a local person, and that's where I think we might come unstuck. So, Mr. Chairman, it's probably more a question for you. Your intention is that the local boards, that of course must support the high-level plan, but it comes down to those little nitty-gritties to actually deliver on that. I think that's where I want to know that this committee and this council supports Panuku going ahead, but of course there'll be toing and froing, but in the end we can't let these big projects be undone by one particular thing that sort of almost pits a metropolitan or a development with a local board advocacy role for a constituent or something like that, I think. And of course that is their job, I understand that. But I suppose that's what I want to make sure, that what you mean here is it's high level, it's not...
Absolutely.
They have to support every single little thing, the detail that'll actually stop it being delivered. I guess that's my question of you. And
I think it's fair to say that if a board, and I don't think we've had this to date, is not supportive of a high-level project plan, they're not supportive of urban regeneration in that particular centre, full stop.
Yeah.
So it's a high-level document, and then out of that come implementation plans. So
yeah.
It would be of concern if we didn't get a signal of support
Yeah.
for a high-level project plan from a local
So that's
board.
the answer to me to support that, Mr. Chairman.
Further questions? Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. David, when you're going through the mechanics of a public works acquisition, compulsory acquisition, can you just step us through how it actually works out? So in some cases, I know that you have to actually have designation for the rest of a project to use the Public Works Act. But there also is potentially some legislational changes coming through, I understand. So you just making sure we're all well aware that when you designate something, you actually have to have the encompassing plans and finance intact to roll with it.
So I can answer that. So Panuku would look to the council as the acquiring authority to designate a piece of land. Land does not need to be designated to be compulsory acquired. And yes, Panuku would have to have the appropriate finances in place in terms of any purchase of land that is designated through the council. So we would have to be able to demonstrate that we have the finances to should we be required to act on that designation. In addition, we would also have to be able to demonstrate that we have undertaken the necessary options analysis with respect to an acquisition.
if we were to go down that compulsory route. As David mentioned earlier, all acquisitions are first up are negotiated at an arm's length transaction, so where we can at all acquire a piece of land on favourable terms, we would do that. The vendor of the property is fairly compensated through the Public Works Act. So,
Subsequent, if I may, Mr. Chair, the whole idea of what you're trying to do in these town centres is to increase the amenity, the values, both physical and metaphysical. So what about the value uplift? How is that configured into the valuation? Is that your arm's length third-party price setter, or?
So a property is bought based on its current value, with current zoning and current setting. So any value uplift that may be there is obviously a benefit ultimately to the ratepayers who bought it. It's worth cautioning there, one of the realities I went through at the workshop though is that typically what makes these regeneration initiatives where you're aggregating property economically challenging is that you're going in, say, buying a shop or a property and then you're basically bulldozing it to do a development. So you've got to write off a cost there that's quite difficult to get back fully. So very rarely are these financial bonanzas.
But the uplift is hopefully going to be the derogatory to make it stick together.
Correct. And in some of the more complex centres where we'll be rolling out a program over time, that can be quite helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Members, I should have moved it earlier. I will move, Deputy Chair, to second. Thank you. Just very briefly, members, this is progression in our work to, in some ways it's in keeping with what's recommended by government's discussion paper in very small part on their urban renewal authorities. But there's a lot in here which that document is not, and there's no suggestion that we're moving towards, for example, overriding district plan provisions or call-in facilities or anything like that. So this is quite simple. It's consistent with what we do in transport at the moment. If transport is our number one mission critical and housing is 1A, this goes a long way to supporting our focus on housing and particularly housing and urban regeneration in our centres, be it the transform centre or unlock centres. So I think we've put some belts and braces around this just to make sure that everybody's comfortable. It has high support from local boards, this direction, and I want to acknowledge local board chair Danielle Grant from Kapariki, who's here in support of these recommendations today. There is written support from Waitemata local board in the report paper, but what you can't see is a high level of support from many other boards, by far the majority of the boards. Further discussion, members? I have Councillor Casey.
It's just a procedural issue, Mr. Chairman. With regard to page 12 and paragraph 26, I'm just concerned at the... I'm going to pass the recommendations. It's not about that. It's about the use of workshops. This sentence doesn't tell the public how many councillors attended the workshop, and does it mean there was a vote taken about... did every councillor speak to this? There's an assumption that if you didn't speak, you had no opposition. That's a dangerous assumption to make. And it's the first time I've seen a workshop listed, you know, the doings of a workshop listed in a council report. Just a bit worried about...
Are you referring to the minute?
No,
or you're referring to paragraph 26 alone?
Alone, yeah.
Okay, so it's best to read paragraph 26 with the item that I just let members or reminded members of, which is the briefing itself. It's on the record of this agenda, and
Sorry, I'm talking from the public's point of view.
When they read it.
it was a confidential planning committee workshop, and about half the councillors were there.
Stop.
What?
It doesn't say... it's just a procedural thing about how we use workshops. There's two things here. I, as a member of the public reading this, don't know how many councillors attended. Also, there's not supposed to be votes or straw polls taken at workshops, yet this says no opposition was raised. Did every councillor have the chance, was asked if they had opposition or not?
Every councillor at the workshop had the opportunity to say whatever at the workshop.
But if a
The
councillor
workshop is
doesn't
an
speak,
open
you cannot
forum.
assume that to be no opposition. That councillor may be waiting for the public forum to raise opposition. I'm just interested, I'd like to hear from Democracy Services with regard to that particular part of the report.
Okay. Dean.
So Councillor Casey, I'm happy to take that question away and we'll give you feedback, both about what we put in our public agenda reports, but also what the protocols are and remind you of those with respect to workshops.
Thank you.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Declare that carried.
Thank you, Mr Chairman.
Thank you.